very much, Mike. I want to thank everybody for getting on the call last week, and it looks like again this week. So I think the cold weather's keeping everybody inside so we can all talk to each other. Last week was part one of maximizing your dealership, and this week is part two of that. And Mike appropriately named it The Truth, because when we look at our business, our dealership, and how to maximize it, last week we talked a lot about leadership and management, and this week we're going to be a lot more specific about the process that we need to follow in order to maximize our business. And this call will only take about half as long as last week, because we're going to get to some very specific steps of the things that we need to do. Last week we talked about planning, people, and process, and how important that is. Of course, the most important factor, it begins and ends with leadership. And, leadership is typically the people that are listening to these calls. And I ask people this question: do you play up to the challenge, or do you play down to the challenge? When things are going really well in this industry, we've had a long history, a long undistinguished history of performing actually fairly poorly, because things become so good that we become a little lazy with the habits that we have that would get us to first place in our division. Well, sometimes we play down to that challenge. And by that I mean when things are tough, rather than investing time in the planning and the people and the process and being disciplined, we tend to find the reasons why we're not performing well. And very rarely, if ever, does that entail a look in the mirror. When it's good, we ultimately begin to get lazy. And when it's bad, we don't invest in the things that it would take to get us out of the rut we're in. So I want to talk to you about thinking about what we do want. Frequently, I go into dealerships and I ask people, I would say adults, but, we're in this industry, so, all right, we'll use adults for today. I ask adults, what do you really want? And, majority of people will start with what they don't want. Well, I don't want to keep selling 8 cars a month. Well, I want to make the dealership profitable this year. I don't want to lose money like last year. Well, that's what you don't want. What do you want? The very first thing they teach a race car driver, don't look at the wall. Why is that? Because you will naturally drift towards that wall. We bring about what we think about. So what I want to think about is that process. I want to make sure that we're training and leading and coaching people. All that equals is development, people development. We're not going to get all first-round draft picks. We're not going to hire the 10 greatest people in the car business because they all die and come to work for us. We need to develop our people and do a better job of it. So when I hear that we just don't get good people here, no, that's not really it. We don't train, lead, coach, hire, and develop the right people. So there's a couple steps in this process, and we're going to make it really easy and direct. First, honestly evaluate what you believe your true profit potential in each department of your dealership is. Or if you're a manager running one department, evaluate honestly what the profit potential of that department is. That's not just a gut feeling. Look at the facts in front of you and decide what you really believe is there and what your goal is. Last week we talked about, in order to realize something, and take the word realize in the literal sense, that is seeing something as real that we did not see as real before. So we realize it. So I want you to realize what that profit potential is in your department. Second, evaluate your processes that you have in place now. Will those processes get the dealership to the goals that you've set, to the potential that you've identified? Can you teach that process? That's a big question. Can you measure it? And most important of all, can you be 100% consistent in your process management? That is the next to not having a good process. Probably the most common thing I see is that people aren't 100% consistent in managing their process. It's always an exception. Now, if you were to work for you, if you waited long enough, would you, the boss, always move away from your rules and your processes, or would you stay completely on top of them? And ask yourself honestly the question, if you're an employee, who would you want to work for? I'd want to work for someone who was very, very consistent, who was driven to get good results. The third step is to evaluate your people. If we do the process analysis properly, and we are confident in those processes, will your people get you there? That's a key component of evaluating your people. Will your people get you there by always following the process? And if the answer to that is no, your people won't get you there, if not, why not? They're not necessarily bad folks. They might be great. Maybe they're not trained. Maybe they're not managed daily 100% consistently. Maybe they're undisciplined or lazy. Maybe we're undisciplined or lazy. Or do they just want to not do it? Do they choose not to do it? And do we allow that? If someone doesn't want to do it, you got to fix them or fire them, and don't waste time and excuses in the process. Most of the things that people don't do are very easy to do, and we know that, but we accept all excuses and reasons why they don't, and we justify it. Don't do that. You have a process. You have people. You're training them to do it. It's a simple process, and we're going to be consistent managing it, then you should get consistent results. If you need better people, do your job better. The fourth step is evaluate the job that you're doing. So you've looked at your potential, you've looked at your processes, you've looked at your people. Now look at yourself. Evaluate the job you're doing. Your job is to 100% prepare your team to win. In the car business, we tend to think that's just game day. In the rest of the world, it's practice days that lead up to the game day. So are you preparing your people to win every single day consistently as a leader? So evaluate the job you're doing. That's step number 4. Step number 5 is take each step of your written results of these steps. So I'll run through them one last time before we hang up. Take each step and look at the written results. Right there in front of you is your plan to maximize your dealership. Get the help you need. Execute that plan daily without exception. And you're going to get better results. Today is January 23rd. Our resolutions and our year-beginning business plans are 6.3% elapsed in time for the year. If you are not on top of your plans, your resolutions, your commitments, when are you going to get on them? If you wait one more week, you're down 8% of elapsed time for the year. So we can't make excuses. Time waits for no one. So the steps that you need to follow, 1, honestly evaluate what your true profit potential is in each department of your dealership. 2, evaluate your processes. Ask yourself, will this process get my dealership to that goal? When you're looking at the process, make sure that you can teach it, measure it, and be 100% consistent in managing it for you. 3, evaluate your people. If you did the process analysis properly and you're confident in those processes, will your people get you there? Process is good. Make sure your people are up to the task. And if they're not, ask yourself why not and address those things. Fix them. And if necessary, and it's the part of the business that we hate, fix them or fire them. But don't waste time doing either. 4th step, evaluate the job that you're doing. Ask yourself where you need help and get that help. And the 5th and final step is take each step, look at the written results. So you got to write those results down. What's staring back at you when you're done is your plan to maximize your dealership. So you get that help that you need. Execute the plan daily without exception. You'll be amazed at what results you get. So last week I got several phone calls after the call, and I had a handful of emails, and we got all of those answered in the same day. And I would be more than happy to try and do that again this week. So, again, my name is Paul Morris. My cell phone is 814-449-1899. And when Mike sends you the call, you're going to have my email address on there, and feel free to email me any questions. I want to thank you all again for listening. These 2 calls have been the most attended so far, and Mike, I want to thank you again for, once again, hosting our calls and distributing all the information.